Ladies, on March 27th at the Golden Gate Club in San Francisco, I invite you to join a room of trailblazers, executives, entrepreneurs, and visionaries who are rewriting the rules of money. Hear from real women who've built wealth through real estate investments, scaling businesses, and creative financial strategies. And learn from industry leaders who have walked the path you're on and who are ready to share their playbooks. You'll engage in intimate panels, fireside conversations, and curated peer-to-peer matchmaking designed to spark meaningful connections. Leave with our wealth creation toolkit packed with actionable resources to help you prioritize your goals and take immediate steps towards financial independence. Now, your journey doesn't end when the day is over. Each of you will be invited to join our online Catalyst community, where you'll be guided through more educational opportunities and times to be able to connect with each other over the course of the next few months. Wealth creation is about opportunity and community. Now, early bird tickets are $9.99 through February 27th. Don't wait. This is your moment to build confidence, community, and wealth. Apply now at women.win and use the code SHAMA25, that's SYAMA25, to get a 25% discount off the early bird price. The Women in Wealth Catalyst Summit, ladies. It's time to redefine wealth and redefine your future.
Welcome to Getting Rich Together, the show for successful women who are looking to take their financial futures to the next level. I'm your host, Shama Bunton. When I started my wealth building journey, nobody knocked on my door to give me all the answers. So I want to talk to the experts who've done it and bring the answers to you so we can discover the right opportunities that will help us achieve the financial futures we've always dreamed of together and have fun doing it. So let's dive into this episode and start getting rich together. I am here today with a fearless leader, the CEO at Rebel Girls. Jes Wolfe, you inspire and empower young girls around the world to see what's possible for them. You've had an incredibly impressive career. You've sold a business. You are someone who I deeply admire and am really fortunate to get to call you a friend and someone who I think has figured a lot of really great things out about life. Thank you so much for being here today on Getting Rich Together. I'm so happy to have you.
Thank you for having me.
So Jess, you, I think, have such a juicy, delightful story of just how life has panned out for you and all of the incredible decisions and choices that you've made. Certainly, most people know you today as being this brilliant, successful woman, but you were once a young girl and you once had other dreams and aspirations and things you wanted to do and be. Take us back to a young Jess, somewhere between 8 and 12 years old, new into this world. What was life like for you? What were you seeing around you? What were the money stories that surrounded you?
So I grew up in a small town in Oregon. And as an 8 to 12-year-old, I was very, very into swimming. That was my entire life, was about swimming. I grew up on a farm outside of Corvallis. So we used to ride our bikes out in the countryside with my family. And at the time, there were cans that people would throw on the side of the road. And you could get 5 cents a can if you recycled them. And so we would take these bike rides and we would find all the cans and we would collect them on our bike ride and then go turn them in for 5 cents each. I don't think that happens anymore, but back then they were worth something. And one time I asked my dad, I said, I think we need to bike the other way. And he's like, oh, why do we need to do that? I said, because we've already gotten all the cans on this side of the road. So that was one of my money stories. My parents gave me an allowance since I was little and really hammered home the concept of saving. And so I had saved and saved. And when I was 9 or 10, my dad, he was an ophthalmologist working, for the clinic, for the hospital. And he wanted to start his own private practice. So I gave him my piggy bank and my life savings, and because I wanted to invest in his business and help him on his first entrepreneurial journey. So that was my first angel investment. That was, I don't know, 9 or 10. And same thing, I remember my aunt who lived in Berkeley, she had this giant ceramic house a foot tall, something like this. And she and her partner would put coins every day at the end of the day when they had coins, back when we all used a lot of cash and had a lot of coins. They would throw their coins into this, ceramic house to save for a house. And so every time I'd go visit her and her partner, that was, what I'd see is that. And she'd say, "Oh, Jess, do you want to go buy some stickers?" And I'd say, No, you're saving for a house. We can't spend the money on stickers. We have to save for a house." So that was just a big part of kind of who we were as a family. Enter me as a 12-year-old. I got my first job, very agricultural place where I grew up. So I picked blueberries as a 12-year-old. And that was my first job. And you got paid by the pound and how many pounds of blueberries you picked. And that was my summer job. And I was thrilled because I could make money and it was directly related to how hard I worked.
And so when you started to save money outside of being an early angel investor, which Jess, I think that is both just incredible and hilarious and so fantastic that you did that. Were there other things in mind? Was there savings for a purpose, or was it more like, I'm building this for the long term and I don't know for what? What was sort of the rationale or ideology around that?
A lot of it is around for the future. I don't know that I had a specific thing in mind, like I want to buy this thing or I want to do this thing, but it was definitely a deep family belief that it's important to save money and to have, an insurance policy for the future, and that money creates freedom and it creates opportunities. When I was in high school, my dad really taught me about investing, and we started investing for the first time. And so I used a lot of that money that I had saved from all these summer jobs to invest. And, this is in the 90s. And so some of that changed my life. One of the companies we invested in 1998 was Apple, but it was, what are the products that we use and love? Who are the companies that make them? A learning about what they do, and that you can be a part of that. And that is a part of saving, is also being able to invest in businesses to create opportunities for the future.
Wow, what an incredible through line, I would say, throughout your life in terms of how you've been able to navigate investing, building businesses, looking at sort of needs in the market and how to commercialize and make money and reinvest that into other future gains. It's really powerful. So then moving on through to university, were you already clear-minded that you would go on to become an entrepreneur and go on to build business? How did you enter into university, and what were some of your initial thoughts of who it was you wanted to be?
So, fun fact, I went to 5 different colleges. I did not know who I wanted to be or what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to see the world. I knew I wanted to get out of Oregon. I knew I wanted to explore. I didn't know a lot that was out there. Where I grew up, there weren't tons and tons of different professions. And so I didn't really know what I didn't know. I wanted to go and figure it out. So I did spend a bunch of time changing colleges, changing majors, living abroad, having adventures, figuring out my place in the world. And it wasn't until my 5th college, which was Berkeley, when I finally was like, okay, I'm ready to be serious. I'm ready to go to school. I'm ready to get, finish my education. And my first year there, I was there for 2 years. I transferred in. I was a poli-sci major, and I wanted to go work on John Kerry's campaign and after school, and realized at some point that would pay me almost nothing, and I'd be living out of my car and like faxing papers. And that hit me real quick in terms of like, oh, wait, I need to figure something else out. And I didn't really know what, but one of my roommates in college was at the business school, undergrad business school. And she said, hey, there's this thing called a career fair, and all of these businesses come and they have jobs. And so a light bulb kind of went off in my head at that time, where I was like, oh, okay, like private sector, jobs, pay you real money, career, this is a path. This is a path. And so I like went to this career fair. I was pretty, had a lot of different hair colors and was a very free spirit. So she, he fixed me up and dyed my hair back brown, and she helped me buy a suit and taught me these things. And I went to this career fair in 2003, and there's all these banks and consulting firms, and I didn't know what any of them did, but I knew that all of the business school kids wanted these jobs. And so I was thinking, okay, if they want these jobs, I should want one of these jobs. This is where I'm supposed to go. This is what I'm supposed to do. So I went and talked to all the recruiters and this and that, and realized that my poli-sci degree probably wasn't super applicable. My second year there, I did a whole econ degree, and don't recommend micro, macro, econometrics, all the things all at the same time. And I did probably 150 different interviews with all these banks, all these consulting firms. I failed so many of these interviews, just absolutely failed them. Had people walk me to the door. As I did so many of them, I learned, what not to say. And, eventually got an offer at Morgan Stanley in the mergers and acquisitions group. And I think they saw me and were like, okay, she doesn't know any of this stuff, but she's clearly smart and she's got horsepower and we'll figure this out. So that was how I got my start in business, because I just didn't know what it was. And then the second light bulb moment was when I was taking microeconomics, and you model out how many different players there should be, how many businesses, and what the price should be, and based on all this stuff. And it was so real and it was so applicable. And I just thought, this is how the world works. This is what I need to know. This is, you can make sense. You can actually use equations to say what a price should be, or how much it should be sold for, how many players the market can bear. And I just remember it feeling like magic, and knowing that I wanted to study this and I wanted to do this. And that was kind of also the seed planted of, hey, one day I want to go to business school and I want to learn this for real.
It's so amazing. I had a similar experience in university. So I studied economics and philosophy, and I had this strong feeling that if I could understand the way the world operated and the motivators within it, that somehow I could rule the world. It's I was like, I get it. I think I get it. It's a really powerful and kind of freaky moment, Jess.
Completely.
You're like,
this is how it works. Look at the game, and I can play it if I understand it.
Oh my God, it's amazing. Okay, so going into early career and all of the things that come with that, asking for more money, negotiating, starting to save, thinking about 401k matching. I mean, obviously, you're young. No one makes that much money when they're young, but it's usually the most money they've ever seen. And so when you were getting started, how did you start to navigate through some of these really early money block fundamentals? Clearly you had this idea of investing, and so fortunate enough to have had some learnings around that. How did it start to apply and money start to unfold in other ways?
Well, I was fortunate because this first job was at a financial institution. So I was surrounded by people who thought about money and talked about money, and our job was to help companies. I mean, I was in the mergers and acquisition group, so buy companies, sell themselves, value them. And we all sat in a bullpen and talked about businesses and the stock market. And most of our customers, our clients were public companies. So that was a part of what I did every day, was look at the stock market, try and understand how companies are traded, how they're valued, how they create value, what kind of transactions they do. So I think because I was in that environment, I soaked up more and more and more and learned more and more. And then we who worked there, and especially our analysts, would also bat around, okay, what do we like? Why? Who's doing what, et cetera. So, those early days in banking, I had a, meager salary, but there was a huge bonus at the end. And so the salary I would use to pay for my rent and pay for my gas and pay for my clothes and those kind of things. And then at the end of the year, you'd get a big bonus. And that's what I would use to invest in. And I'd take, the vast majority of that bonus and predominantly put it in the stock market.
That's amazing. And so certainly you then built up your career, right? So you went on, you continued in finance and then moved into consulting, had your experience in business school. During this sort of part of your career as you were really learning the ins and outs of, I would like to say, how business in the world works, truly. You had this chance to see it from so many different angles. As your career was progressing, at what moment did you say, okay, I'm going to take this break and go to business school? And how did you kind of navigate that piece of your transition and then entering back into the workforce and moving on into consulting?
So since that, I started my senior year of college and that light bulb moment of I want to go to business school, it was okay, how do I get there? And the kind of conventional wisdom at the time was work for 4 years, do 2 different jobs, have something to write about, and then go to business school. So that's what I did. So I was at Morgan Stanley for 2 years, and then I went and worked for the International Finance Corporation for 2 years, which is the private sector arm of the World Bank. And so that was investing in private companies in emerging markets, a lot of project finance. And the reason why I was so excited to do that was I got to use my finance skill set, but on the investing side of things versus on the advisory side of things. But combine that with my poli-sci and love of the world and get to work with these entrepreneurs in the Middle East and in the Balkans and in Asia and in South America and kind of get to see the world and do good and keep learning and use a little bit of the finance skills that I had created. So that was the kind of second job, which also was really helpful in solidifying some of the investing theses of like, how do you model this? What are the questions to ask? What are the diligence to do? And then at the end of that 2 years, I knew I really wanted to go to business school. So applied, got in, went. And when I went to business school, I went to Stanford because they had such an amazing entrepreneurial culture. And I'd been in finance then for 4 years, and I knew that I liked finance and it taught me so many things, but I wasn't passionate about it. It wasn't what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So unbelievably grateful for the education, but I wanted to go somewhere where I could learn how to build something. And I really wanted to be able to take risks, and I wanted to be able to point to something at the end of the night and say, I built that. And so that was the kind of spirit of going into business school, was to take a lot of different kinds of classes that weren't finance classes, kind of learn the other parts of being an operator for a business. And at the end of business school, the whole goal was to be an entrepreneur or an operator or go work at a startup or one of those kind of things. I was married at the time, and my ex-husband was still at the World Bank in DC. And we'd done this kind of cross-country marriage. And so after that, we decided that we'd like to live together. And so I needed to move back to DC so we could be together. And there, at the time, DC was not the most thriving startup place. So I was trying to figure out what is the best job I could get that would allow me to live in DC and also continue learning about all things private sector and different businesses. And so that's why I joined the Boston Consulting Group out of the DC office to continue on my education.
Interesting. And so a couple questions on, moving, like deciding to go to business school. So had you pulled money out of savings to say, I'm going to put myself through business school? Were you able to get any sort of like employer sponsorship? Business school is not cheap, right? So how did you and your husband, or how did you kind of think about business school at that time and sort of the financial expenses related to that?
So I'm incredibly lucky. My grandfather paid for my school. And, we come from a culturally Jewish family that really believes in education and the value of education. And so that was a deal all along, was we will pay for your tuition, go to school, get an education. And so my family paid for my tuition. I paid for all my living expenses and all of that, and was able to come out of business school without any debt and come out of college without any debt too, which was absolutely the biggest blessing anyone could ever give me. So when I thought about it from a finance perspective, I was very fortunate to be able to have that tuition support. And then it was about, okay, I'm not going to earn money for these 2 years. This is how much my living expenses is going to cost me. So this is kind of my investment in that and the opportunity cost of not working, but thinking about what the potential upside is for the next 30, 40 years afterwards. It felt like a really solid investment.
Oh, I love that. I love that framing of thinking about things long term. It feels like you've always had an ability to think long term and to sort of really think for the future and feel into maybe the unanticipated needs you might have, what things might end up looking like. So how long did you stay in DC? Consulting is obviously, while you are located in DC, there's often quite a bit of traveling with consulting, and there's a home base, but it's usually sometimes maybe just a place where you rest your head. So how did you start to navigate what life was like? And did you find yourself in all of this traveling and through a heavy workload, which consulting is often also known for? Were you able to save a lot of money because you were on the road and they were paying for everything? Like how did you navigate savings and earning and all of that through these consulting years?
Yes, and yes. Yeah, there's a lot of travel and a lot of work in consulting. So it's not super awesome from a lifestyle perspective. It is super awesome from a savings perspective because you don't have a lot of things to spend money on. You're flying, you're staying in hotels, you're eating out. It's all on the company dime. And you're working really long hours. So there's not a lot of entertainment-y things to spend money on. So I did save a lot of money when I was there because I was only home on weekends. And we loved to host barbecues in the backyard and hang out and didn't have a super, super lavish lifestyle. So I saved a lot in those years. I spent about a year and a half based out of DC. And then they moved me to the Paris office. And there they paid for everything, the apartment, all of that stuff. I worked a lot in Eastern Europe and Western Europe, and then went to Tel Aviv for about 10 months to work there. Yeah, and had more international adventures doing it.
So exciting.
The other great thing about consulting is you get lots of airline miles and lots of hotel points. And so it really funds, the fun travel as well. And came back to DC, stayed another, I don't know, I think I was with the BCG for about 3 years in total.
Wow.
And then it was time to move on.
And so during this time, had you still stayed pretty concentrated in investing in the stock market, or had you begun to sort of think about, real estate, or, maybe your second angel investment, given that your first was for your father, where, were you still sort of looking at personal finance from that same perspective as you had in your early 20s, or were you starting to get a little bit more adventurous or starting to try new things?
My ex-husband and I bought our first house. So when I moved back to DC right after business school, so that was our, first real estate investment. And it was still a lot of stock market. I had this thesis after business school. I thought my classmates were really clever and really smart. And so I watched where they went to work. And so if one person went to work at a company, I would invest $15K in that company. And if 3 people went to work in that company, I'd invest $50K in that company. And I picked a handful of the people I thought just were really smart. I was like, where are they going to spend their time and energy? What companies are they so excited about that they're going to work there? Which is the biggest investment you can make, is where you work. Mm-hmm. And so I piggybacked on that and made a lot of really interesting investments, right after business school when I was at BCG, based on where my classmates went to work. So I've still been very heavy stock market, plus first real estate, buying a home, all of that.
That is so smart, Jess. I'm just continuously jaw-dropping and big smiles around how you analytically have sort of made your way through things. That is so smart to stop and be like, where are all the brilliant people I know going and working and allocating time and energy? And it's a really incredible way to sort of view the real sort of, I think, conversion between investing as an idea and then really sort of the tangible outputs of what investing are, which is the people who are there to create the visions, produce the products, and really build the engine, and being able to see not only from an external standpoint what those businesses are doing, but those people and who they are. It's a real 360 perspective. And it sounds like up until that point, you'd started to really build out your 360ness, your pie of experiences around business, with the next jump being to entrepreneurship and getting sort of scratching the itch, if you will, of what it was you really wanted to do. So how did you begin to think about stepping away from something that would be considered quite stable, right? And moving into something that is unstable, unsure of sort of what, salaries, lifeline, what the thing might look like, where it might take you. How did you start to put together not only your decision to move into that arena, but then also to financially feel secure and emotionally, sound to be able to take that sort of risk?
There was an interim step. After leaving BCG, I left BCG because a headhunter called me and said, hey, we're working for this private equity firm. They've bought 20 companies around the world and smashed them together. And they're looking for someone who's done M&A and done strategy consulting, who speaks a bunch of languages, to come and fix stuff.
They were looking for you.
And I was like, yeah, that sounds like me. And my husband and I had just gotten divorced, and I was looking for the next adventure. And this, I was at BCG primarily for him and for DC and for the location. And this was an opportunity for me to be an operator. And that was what I was really, really wanting to do. So I went and worked for them for a couple of years, and took me all over the world, restructuring Brazil business, starting the China business, ended up being the VP of sales in Australia, doing a transformation there. And it was my first time actually getting to do things and build things and make decisions about things that actually had, less slides and models and giving advice, and more really getting to be a part of a business. And it was not necessarily a super entrepreneurial business. It was a little bit more of a fix it business, but it still was my stepping stone to being an operator. And I really, really, really loved it. And I felt like this is what I'm supposed to do is to build. And I was in Australia, and, there's a lot of politics went down, not in my favor. And I had just come back from my 5-year business school reunion. One of the main professors I'd taken so many classes with had given our keynote at our reunion. And he was talking about the chapters of life. And he was talking about how life is a sine curve. And when you're at the top, it will get worse. And when you're at the bottom, it will get better. And that regardless of which chapter you're in or where on the sine curve you are, that he tried to optimize for 3 things. And that was a person to be, someone to love, and a work to do. And so who are you as an individual? What are your hobbies? What are your pursuits? How are you developing yourself? Who are the people you surround yourself with? Your family, your friends, your community. And what work are you doing? Are you making an impact? Are you fulfilled? And I gave myself this life score that was really low at the time. It was really, really low. And I decided that it was time for a change. I resigned from the company in Australia. I started a 7-month walkabout through Asia. At the time I was 33. I'd just gotten divorced. I just quit my company, working there. I'd sold my house. I'd sold my car, to move to Australia. And it was a time of soul searching of who am I? What is my identity based off of? Who do I want to be? Where do I want to live? What do I want to do for work? What kind of people do I want to surround myself with? And I gave myself the time during this walkabout in Asia to climb mountains and surf waves and come up with the answers. And the answers were, I want to live in the Bay Area because I love it. I have friends from college. I have friends from business school. I've got family there. The environment is about entrepreneurialism and building and doing and changing. There's all the nature I love. And so, that's the community I want to be a part of. And I want to build. I don't want to work for other people anymore. I don't want to play politics anymore. I don't want to play the game and the corporate ladder and the this and that anymore. It's time for me to build. And I was able to do that with the confidence that one, I'd saved a bunch of money so I could take risks. And two, I'd gotten such an amazing education, both a formal education and through all of this, decade of work experience all over the world where I've been trained, that I had this great education. And so I felt like I had two amazing things going for me and allowed me to take a lot of risk because I had these kind of insurance plan, basically, and the confidence that I could figure it out. And so I moved to San Francisco 9 years ago, and I had angel invested in my friend's company, Hoodline, the year before when they did their, seed round and allowed friends and family to come in. And 2 weeks after I got there, he said, "Hey, we don't know really how to run a business or make money, so can you come help us?" And that was the opportunity. That was the in to building something with one of my best friends and learning about tech in a way that I'd never been in tech before. And that's how it started.
And so as you were magically intending and letting all of this unfold, how long did it take? Obviously, when you're taking a risk or betting on yourself financially, you're, either setting aside a certain amount of money, you're, thinking, all right, I'm going to do this for X amount of time. Had you given yourself any parameters at all around sort of how you were going to or how long you were going to see it through? Or was it, I'm jumping off the cliff and let's go and ride or die?
Ride or die. Burn the bridge behind you.
That's really powerful and gives me lots of little goosebumps. So tell me a little bit about your journey in building that business. And more specifically, when you're starting a business, sometimes you take much less or no salary, right? Or you're early on and you're employee number 1, 2, 3, 5, but you don't know necessarily where the earnership or the payout's going to come from. So in these early days of joining the company and navigating it and ultimately seeing it through to its exit, how did you start to think about, let's say, your own balance of your personal finances and how that was going to change and be different from the ways that were before?
Yeah, so I took a pretty small salary for my whole time there. We all did. It was the reality of it. I had taken the equity that I had created in the house in DC to buy the house in San Francisco, buy my apartment there. So that was kind of one aha too, which was I put X amount of equity into the place in DC and it grew. And then I translated that. So I had a place to live and, a pretty great mortgage rate and all of that stuff that doesn't exist right now. But the housing part was kind of taken care of. And then I had invested for so many years in the stock market that paid dividends. And, I continue to stay to sell Apple stock as it goes up and able to kind of fund my lifestyle. So I don't have an extravagant lifestyle. And back then I had my place, I had my car, did my fun things, but I worked a lot too. So one of the things is when you're working 80, 90 hours a week, you don't have tons and tons and tons of time to spend on stuff. So I was able to basically subsidize my lifestyle because of the investments I'd made earlier on.
I think that's so powerful, Jess. I think that's something that most, or certainly a lot of entrepreneurs don't talk about, which is, how to start a business or create sort of, or have some sort of emotional and physical anchoring so that it really allows you to throw yourself into your work, to be able to really put your time and energy into something you're so passionate and wanting to see through. Because I've seen, and I'm sure you've seen, plenty of founders and early team members where the money is so tight personally that it can be really difficult to make decisions in the best interest of the business, right? And to really be able to invest yourself in the ways you want to.
I was very lucky that I started at 33 after a decade of big company work, getting big company salaries and bonuses and had saved money all along. I'm very cognizant that there are many entrepreneurs out there who don't have that luxury. And it's a real added stress.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. So let's talk about some of the sexy things. Like, what the heck was it like to sell a business? And like, how did you, obviously, you being the best person to be in a position of thinking and strategizing and negotiating and figure it out. Now, I don't know if that was the role that you took, but from your experience, I just could not imagine a better person to be at the table to make this deal happen. What did it feel like for you? And what were some of the things that were going through your mind and spirit as you guys were entering upon this really incredible, powerful breakthrough that every single startup wishes they could have?
I was a COO, and the CEO was a master deal maker. And I learned a lot from him. And we had gone through multiple processes of raising and selling and doing huge BD and all sorts of things. And it was a huge startup ride of, oh my gosh, crash and burn. Okay, let's try again. Oh my gosh, crash and burn. And so there were a lot of those moments, and there were deals that fell through at the last second. There were things that happened, things that didn't happen. So, I think at the end, like finding the home for the company was the right answer for the company and for everyone. And it wasn't a landslide financial win for us. I think everyone made a little bit of money. The employees made some money. The investors got paid back. So it was something we felt very proud about. And wow, was it a learning experience.
And was there anything, one of the things that I love about money is you can invest it, see it grow. You can also spend it. And so obviously this is a big milestone. And while the numbers may not have been egregiously high, there was something to be gained. Was there anything that you did, Jess, after this that was like, I'm going to do something fabulous for myself, and it is XYZ?
Yep. I bought a house in Tahoe, which was the place I've dreamed of and loved going to and loved to ski at. And so I bought myself a little house in Tahoe and thought it was going to be a second home, and it turned into a full-time home. But that was the next like really big purchase, was a ski house.
That's so incredible. And so after this exit, life then becomes really wild, wild west. I mean, now you're talking about having so many incredible notches under your belt of experiences and people and lots of different business models you've now been involved in. And my gosh, like, again, building this pie, and now you've got this toolkit and this life experience to go out and essentially do what you want and create what you want and do it in a way that feels somewhat unstoppable. How did you start to organize your life after the exit? What were you thinking the future would start to look like? And then really, how did you so lovingly find yourself as the CEO of Rebel Girls?
So I took a second walkabout, as you will, this time in Tahoe. I didn't really walk very much, but I skied a lot. And the first startup was so intense. It was so unbelievably intense. I was really burned out. And so I needed time off. I needed time to think. And so I bought this place in Tahoe, climbed Mount Whitney, got a dog 3 days later, and decided to be a ski bum and figure out what I really, really wanted with the next chapter. Okay, I've been an operator. Okay, I've been an entrepreneur. Okay, do I want to do it again? Do I want to do something different? What kind of lifestyle do I want? Do I have the energy? And so what I did is I hosted founders at my place in Tahoe, and they'd come and they'd do these like 3-day like ski strategy camp. And basically what that meant is we'd go skiing every day and we'd talk about their business on the chairlift. And it was my way to keep a foot in San Francisco and keep a foot with founders and people who are building and ideas and keep my mind going, but not commit to anything, and give myself that time and space to rest and to think. And a lot of really interesting things came out of that. I ended up doing a bunch of angel investing from that. I did with other people too, and there was funds that were created, and there was a lot of just learning and ideas. And and good things that came out of that time, including, energy, happiness, clarity, and my skiing got really good too. Anyway, is not even. Anyway, one of the two founders of Rebel Girls was introduced to me by a mutual connection, and she came to Tahoe, and we did 3-day ski camp, and I fell in love, and that was basically it. I just fell in love with the books and the concept, and it had product market fit, and I thought that it could be so much bigger than it was, and retirement ended basically, and I started out joining the board, and then got more and more and more and more involved for about a year, and then raised the first round of capital and officially became the CEO when that first round closed. And that's how I got here.
Oh, it's so incredible, Jess. And so right now, as you're sort of looking at the areas that you're spending, I like to think investing is, as you mentioned earlier, it's not just your money, it's your time, it's your energy, it's also, legacy building, certainly, being able to, at this point in your life, create the vision of the world that you want, and really being able to sort of enact your values through that lens. As you look today at sort of obviously your time and energy spent in Rebel Girls, and then also the companies you've invested in from an angel perspective, and sort of the ways in which you've operated as an advisor, are there any through lines in terms of values or things that are important to you that you're able to reflect on?
The biggest through line is I'm investing in women and girls. So every single one of my angel investments in the last 8 years has had at least one female founder, if not entire founding team. It's really important to me. Only 2 or 3% of venture capital goes to women, which is just silly. And I want to support women. I want to support diverse founders. I want to support diverse ways of thinking of the world and approaching the world and solving needed problems in the world. So my money goes where my mouth is, and I want to invest in the future, not as people who have been overlooked in the past. So that's the investing lens. The personal lens of Rebel Girls is also investing in this next generation. And how do we raise this next generation to be amazing, powerful humans that are going to change the world, because there are so many problems that need to be fixed. And confidence is the single biggest predictor of success of a child. And girls start thinking that they are less smart and less capable than boys at age 6. And that's got to change. And so my legacy is in helping to build an organization with many, many, many amazing team members and coalition members and businesses and everybody who wants to be a part of this, right? But to change it so that girls grow up with the same level of confidence as boys, so that they can go become leaders in every field out there and make the changes and solve the problems and create a better future, because we need it. And that's where my energy goes. That's where my time goes. That's where my money goes right now. And that's what I want to be my contribution.
I love you, Jess. You're great. Here's this. Just fangirling over here. So, when it comes to the awesome, fun ways that you love to spend your money. Now, I know that you are an outdoor junkie. You are just in love with every sport that I've ever known to exist. I don't know what new sports are out there, but I'm sure that not only do you know about them, but you excel at them. What are some of the things that you are most enjoying right now, spending your money on, that is fun and exciting for you?
Gear.
Yeah. Tell me about your most exciting gear purchase so far.
Oh, let's see here. I own 5 pairs of skis. I bought a snowmobile to sled ski. I own 3 surfboards, 3 wake surfboards, 4 bike. I love gear.
I love that so much. And then my favorite final question, Jess, is obviously you are extremely independent and really have it together. You're building an empire. Your legacy is clear, and the path has been nothing but but exciting and dotted with so many interesting points. But I'm sure, as with everyone, there is something that you might need in this beautiful world of ours, something that either an audience member who's listening can provide. Maybe it's a resource, a contact, a recommendation, something that you're calling in from the universe. What might that be right now, and how can we support you?
Help me build and help me with the mission. So for everyone out there, support women, full stop. Invest in women, invest your time, invest your money, invest your interest, invest in girls. Help them figure out what their superpower is, help them nurture that and do that. If you'd like to support our company by buying our books or listening to our podcasts or watching our videos and coming soon consumer products, that would be amazing. If you have an intro for us for an awesome brand we should work with or partner with or a new retailer or distribution model, we'll take it. And let's change all the problems we have now. Let's create a much more gender equal world, and everyone needs to do their part.
Jess, you're incredible. I'm so grateful to know you. Thank you for being here today on the show and for sharing your beautiful story.
Thanks for having me, Shama.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Getting Rich Together. Please take a minute to subscribe, and if you like this episode, I'd love it if you could share it with a friend who is ready to elevate their financial future. Until next time, let's keep getting rich together.